Hi, this is Erin Quigley from Go Ask Erin, and I am thrilled to introduce you to BackscatterXterminator. It is going to revolutionize your editing for your underwater photographs. Let's get started. BackscatterXterminator, or BSXT, is a mind-blowing dream come true for underwater photographers. It removes most backscatter from most images with a single click. And even if you're brand new to Photoshop or who have never used it before, there's an automated function built into it that's going to make it so easy for you to absolutely improve the quality of your images. You'll probably be saving a lot of images that otherwise you would have tossed. And I mean, it blows my mind every single time I look at it. Really is a superhero in my photo editing bag of tricks. When I can take an image like this, sea lion on the left, shitty lighting, horrible conditions, and with one click, get the result on the right, I'm sold. This too, there's more backscatter than water, and there's all different kinds of backscatter. But when I use BackscatterXterminator on this image, it leaves detail, it leaves whiskers, and it replaces the backscatter with very, very accurate grain and image detail. That's the thing that was really hard to do in the past. If you use the kind of traditional tools in Lightroom and Photoshop, tough to stay away from artifacting and blur. But BackscatterXterminator does a fantastic job. Here's another example. This would have been impossible in the past. The backscatter in the corners there would just go to bleh, blurred, horrible milkiness. But with one click, and even in between the fronds of this soft coral, the backscatter goes away. Insane. Works great for macro, maintains detail on the rhinophores, on the soft coral in the background. And even here, I mean, this would just go bye-bye. And the backscatter does go bye-bye. It's actually pretty great. This is something that I would have loved to have been able to figure out how to do with regular tools. I never could, and that is to leave the light rays and get rid of the backscatter. Unbelievable. This is another real tough one. There's just terrible conditions that day, and there's like some unwanted elements in the image as well. There's that weird thumb head shark at the bottom, kind of, I don't know what that is, sock puppet. And then there's the grouper in the background. I want those to go away too. That's a little bit more advanced workflow. And I'm just going to do one image at the end of all this so that you can see some other tools that capitalize on BackscatterXterminator's genius. Amazing. All right. Now that I've been raving about it, I'm going to give you a little bit of a disclaimer, because keep in mind that backscatter removal is extremely challenging. Obviously, I've been trying to get rid of backscatter for as long as I've been shooting underwater, and I know I'm not the first one or the only one that's been doing that. So no tool will ever be 100% perfect, but it will do fantastic on almost every kind of backscatter and on almost every image. Now, there are times when BackscatterXterminator may leave out a few pieces here and there. There are times when it may be a little overachiever and remove more of the subject detail than you want. The workflow I'm going to teach you makes it very easy to adjust in both of those circumstances. But it is really important to recognize that for that reason, you need to know how to analyze your image, and you need to analyze every image after you've run BackscatterXterminator on it. All right, let's just start with the basics. We'll start with the very beginning. When you installed the software, you were given a choice. Do you want to do what we recommend, which I would always, of course, urge you to do, and that is to install a Photoshop action along with BackscatterXterminator. The default is yes here. This is the Mac screen. This is the Windows screen. You see a little checkbox here. Install Photoshop action, recommended, yes. If you didn't do that, that's fine. You can still run BackscatterXterminator without this action that automates the building of layers it's really great if you don't know Photoshop. That's why we do recommend it. But if you're someone who's comfy with Photoshop and you can build layers and layer masks yourself, then you don't need to install the action. It will save you a ton of time, however, I must say. So if you said no the first time around, no problem. Just go back, rerun the installer, and choose yes. And we proceed from there. Okay, so how can you help BackscatterXterminator to do the best on your image? How can you get the most out of it and get the most satisfactory results? Well, first of all, use it early in your process. So I'm going to say do your tonal changes, global tonal changes in Lightroom or wherever you're working. Do your white balance global in Lightroom or wherever you're working. If your image is really noisy, then run denoise from Lightroom, or if you have a plugin that gives you a raw file back like Lightroom does, that would be great. And then use that as the jumping off point for BackscatterXterminator. If you want to do masking and all that kind of stuff, that's great. Either do it in Photoshop or come back and do it in Lightroom after you've run BackscatterXterminator. Once you run it in Photoshop, you'll be able to clean up things that it left behind, and you'll be able to take back or block part of the effect if it went a little bit too far. Let's take a look at how that works. So step one, you need to open an image in Photoshop, right? So that's just a really important thing. I'm going to do that from Lightroom. So that's Command E on a Mac, Control E on a PC. I'm just going to go here to Photoshop, and I have my image opened in Photoshop. Now, don't freak out if you're not used to looking at Photoshop. I'm going to bet that your Photoshop probably doesn't look much like mine right now, but that's because Photoshop is infinitely customizable. And so I've got mine really scaled down to just the only things that I need. And you can do the same with yours. If you have a lot of extraneous windows, don't worry. You can just come over here to this little hamburger, these little horizontal lines, and click and say close to close each tab by tab. Or if you've got a bunch of them, you can say close tab group. There are really only two that you need to have open for this workflow. The first one is actions, and the second one is layers. If you can't find actions or you can't find layers, you can open them by coming to the window menu here and making sure they're checked on. And by the way, this is another way of closing anything that you don't want. You can make sure that it's checked off. And you see here, I really only have two actions and layers tabs turned on right now. That's all you need. All right. So number one was open a picture in Photoshop. We got it. And it's got a lot of backscatter in it. So I can't wait to run number two, which is run the action that we installed. Now, the action is in the Actions tab. There's a folder called BSXT. And in that folder, next level down, is something called BSXT action. Click here. Click there, because what that does is it turns on the little play arrow down at the bottom of the Actions panel. And what you want to do is just hit that little play arrow. You'll see the hamsters on the wheel start to go, or whatever that is, monkey on a bicycle. I don't know what that little icon is. And BackscatterXterminator is running in the background. Now, it just took out a ton of backscatter very quickly. And it started with the background layer. It built a BSXT layer. It ran BackscatterXterminator. It added a layer mask. I'll talk about that in a minute. And it added a cleanup layer that we can use to remove anything it left behind, like that. Really fast. Now, of course, speed is going to depend on your machine. You know, what your processor is, how much buffer you have, all of that kind of stuff. But when I'm looking at this, that just saved me 2 hours of backscatter. If I probably would have thrown this image away. So it's amazing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the layers panel, because I need you to know, You don't have to be an expert at it, but I need you to know a few things so that you can analyze your image. First of all, these eyeballs to the left of the icons here, little preview thumbnails, they turn the visibility for the layer it's attached to on or off. So there's nothing in the cleanup layer right now. When you see checkerboard like that, that just means that the layer is empty, but we're going to use it to clean up later. The BSXT layer, you see I selected it by clicking on it. It's a different color now. You really have to pay attention to which layer you have selected. If I turn the eyeball on and off there, what it does is it gives me a before and after of the effect of BSXT. Now, this is a big part of analyzing your image after it's been run, because I'm turning the eyeball on and off, and I'm noticing that some of the little spiky parts of that pink soft coral have been exterminated, and I would rather restore them to life. So the way that I'm going to do that is by using the layer mask attached to block part of BackscatterXterminator's impact on the image. It's very easy to do. You just have to know a couple of little things. First of all, on this layer, you will see there are two components. There's the mask component, that's just that white rectangle, and there's the image thumbnail. Right now, the mask is 100% white. That means it's doing nothing. When the mask is white, it's not blocking any pixels of the layer it's attached to. When the mask is black, it blocks the pixels of the layer that the mask is attached to. In this case, the BackscatterXterminator layer. So I want to make sure that to restore the part that I don't like about what BackscatterXterminator did, I'm going to paint with black over those areas, but the layer mask has to be activated. How do I know the layer mask is activated? It has this little frame around it. If I were to click on the image thumbnail, the frame would jump. The frame needs to be around the layer mask. This will be second nature in no time at all. I know for those of you who aren't used to working this way, it might be a little daunting, but trust me, super easy. Once you do it a few times, you're going to understand. So my goal is to restore the spiky part of this pink soft coral. I have the layer mask activated on the BSXT layer. Turn the eyeball on and off. I can see, yep, that took the backscatter away. Leave the eyeball on so that I can see what I'm doing. Make sure that the layer mask is activated by having that frame around it. And now I'm going to go and grab a brush. And the action that you ran probably grabbed the brush for you in advance, but I just want you to make sure that you have the regular brush tool, not the pencil, not the mixer brush, not, whatever the other brushes are, just the regular brush tool. Shortcut to get to the brush tools is the letter B. If you're lost and you don't know what you're looking at over here in this thing called the toolbar, just tap B and you'll see the brush toolbar drawer, I guess you might call it, get selected. And then if there's a little arrow in the bottom of it, you click and hold and it shows you all the tools that are associated with that compartment, if you will. All right, so I have a brush. And anytime you have a tool, you have to check the tool options. Up here, I want to see that the brush is normal. I want to see that, 49%. I don't want that. I want it to be 100% opacity so that I'm painting with 100% black so that it 100% blocks out the effect of BSXT. If you just wanted to kind of sort of block it out, you could paint with a lower opacity, but we'll get to that a little bit later. The flow, the smoothing, I wouldn't worry about that right now. Flow can be 100, but unless you're using a tablet with a pressure-sensitive pen, that doesn't really matter. Okay, so I have the brush selected. It's in normal mode. It's 100% opacity. And very importantly, down here, underneath all the tools on the toolbar, are these two little squares. That is known as the color picker. The top square is the foreground color. That whatever is in there, whatever color that is, that's going to be on your brush tool when you paint on the image. The bottom one is the background color. Right now, we want the foreground color to be black because black blocks the effect of BSXT if you paint on the layer mask. And I don't mean come over here and paint on the layer mask. You're going to paint in your image where you want to restore image detail that was taken out with BackscatterXterminator. All right, so I'm going to zoom in here for a minute so that you can see. And I'm just going to start painting back in the little pieces of this soft coral. Very nice. Around here. Oh yeah, there's some up there. And I'm going to zoom back out. If for some reason you went too far, you would just switch black to white. And then when you paint in white, you'll reveal the effect of the BackscatterXterminator again. So you can go back and forth. It's very forgiving. You're not ruining anything by doing it. Turn that eyeball on and off a few more times to make sure you're not missing it. I see there are a few more up here that I want to get. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so now look at the layer mask. If I option click on it on a Mac or alt click on the mask itself, you'll just see where I'm blocking the effect of BackscatterXterminator on that layer. Option click or alt click to restore it to this view. Okay, on and off, on and off. I don't see anything else going away that I'm going to cry over. So now I'm going to move on to the next step, okay? And that is cleanup. To clean up, which means to continue the BackscatterXterminator job, if there's anything left, I'm going to select the cleanup layer. You can see that it's now selected. It's a different color. The eyeball is on. That means it's visible. And now I'm going to use a healing tool to get rid of just the few little things that are left that I think are distracting. So the healing tool looks like a Band-Aid with magic. It has these little sparkles on it, and it shares its tool drawer with a bunch of other healing tools. Now, the keyboard shortcut for the healing tools is J, and I can always remember that because Jesus heals. But it's a little tricky because if I had used the patch tool last, that would be the icon that's on the top of that drawer. If I had used the plain old remove tool, that would be the one. So you just want to click and hold until you can see what you have to choose from. And then I'm going to pick the remove tool in this case. Now, the remove tool also has options that you have to check, and they're very important in this case because we're working on an empty layer, an independent layer. So if I come up here to the tool options bar, you see a bunch of stuff, find distractions, ignore that for the time being, mode, auto, ignore that for the time being. This lets you choose whether you're going to use generative AI or not generative AI. Generative AI goes out and looks for pixels from God knows where to replace whatever is under the cursor. And the automatic version decides whether the condition is serious enough that it has to do that, I guess. I'm not exactly sure. But the way it works is you just brush over whatever it is you want to remove, and it goes away. Now, something else in this options bar that's very important. Sorry, I got a little distracted. Sample all layers must be on for this to work in the cleanup layer. So options are maybe auto, sample all layers checked on. And if you want to remove these things after each stroke, you can do that. You can leave that checked on. If that is checked off, what that means is none of this is going away until you're done with all of it. I'm just putting in all these little pieces here, just little tiny things. BackscatterXterminator did a kick-ass job on this. Amazing. And then now I would hit this checkbox. But to be honest, I just leave remove after each stroke checked on in most instances. So amazing. Let's look at the before and after here. I'm going to just option or alt click on the eyeball near the background, and that will turn everything else except the background on or off. So I'm holding down option on a Mac, alt on a PC, and clicking on that eyeball. There's before there's after. There's before, there's after. I'm going to zoom in because I can't stand it. It's so amazing. I'm just going to come up here, before and after, before and after. It's crazy. Let's come over here. Wow. Wow. Okay. So we've gone through all the steps. We opened something into Photoshop. We ran the BSXT action. We masked out parts where it went a little too far. We cleaned up things that it left behind. Both of those are like really, really minor. And now that you're done with your image and maybe you want to go forward and do more editing in Lightroom or wherever it is, you just save it. So Command S on a Mac, Control S on a PC, or of course you can go to File, Save. And if you're working from Lightroom, this will go right back next to the original in the original folder, and it will be a TIFF or a PSD that will maintain these layers. So pretty darn cool. One thing I did want to mention to you here, if you are not running the action, if you don't want to run the action, not a big deal. I just want to show you where to find BackscatterXterminator, and that is under the filter menu. Filter, RC Astro, BackscatterXterminator. And if you click that, it will run on whatever layer you have selected. So pay attention to your layers panel over here. All right, let's try one more image in this tutorial. It's all the same stuff over again, and then a little bonus AI to get rid of other distracting things. So again, the first rule is you've got to open the image in Photoshop. Okay, this is in Lightroom right now, and I'm just going to go to Photoshop and open it. And I have just a plain background layer. Really important if you're running the action. That layer right there at the bottom, that has to say background. It can't say layer 1. It can't have another name. It has to be the background layer, and it has to be the only layer. The action doesn't work if you have a document that already has multiple layers in it. All right. If I wanted to just run the filter, I could just make a duplicate layer here, Command or Control J, and go Filter, RC Astro, BackscatterXterminator, and it would run. But I don't want to do that because the action is a lot faster. So I'm going to delete that layer and just make sure the click here layer is clicked. And I can push this little play button. If the play button is gray, it's because you have the wrong level chosen. I'm going to click there. Hamster on a wheel, run, 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 little fellows. Let's see what happens. Wow. Okay, so there's the before, and there's the after. I mean, can I just say, come on. Look at the grain. Come on. That's insane. All right. So let's go our step by step. We opened the photo. We ran the action. We're going to think, did this go too far anywhere? Let's turn the eyeball on the BSXT layer on and off. That looks good, except you know what? I think I want to restore a little bit of the plankton to the inside of the manta's mouth, because that's why the manta has its mouth open. There's plankton there. So I'm going to make sure that the layer mask is activated, layer component activated. That means the little frame has to be around it, okay? And then I'm going to go and I'm going to get a brush over here. I'm going to make sure that black is the foreground color. I'm going to look at the brush options, and maybe I don't want to restore it to 100% of the brightness that backscatter was. So I can just lower the opacity of the brush here. And now when I paint, I just get a little touch. There we go, just to make it a little more realistic. Okay, great. I can turn that on and off to see the change. I'm just clicking the eyeball near the BSXT layer. If you want to see just the mask, remember, it's Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC. Click on the layer mask. And you can see that that's not solid black, right? That's transparent. That's what, 61% opacity. So 49% is showing through or something, whatever the math is. It's just controlling it partially. One other thing I want to tell you is that you can change the opacity of the whole layer. And this is just a little more advanced thinking. If you have run BackscatterXterminator and for some reason you think it looks too pristine, silly you, but you can change the opacity of the layer here. So you can just start to bring back in a little bit of backscatter if you want that kind of grungy look. You're the artist. It's all good. But now, something else. I want to clean up a little because there are a couple little things that BackscatterXterminator missed, but also there are bubbles, there are divers, it's hectic. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to click on the cleanup layer here to select it. And I'm going to come and get this remove tool. I just click and hold until I see all the tools in that drawer. Remove, come up to the options, make sure that sample all layers is on. And I'm just going to start clicking just where I think these little things are. And you can change the brush size by hitting left bracket or right bracket. Left bracket makes it smaller, right bracket makes it bigger. Smaller ones are sometimes easier to work with. And I'm just going to quickly knock some of these little guys back. And then you know what? I am going to get rid of these bubbles over here. I'm going to bigger brush, right bracket. Great. I'm going to get rid of these divers. Blech. Awesome. These guys too. You're gone. Goodbye. Maybe even this little bubble stream here I can get, I think. Not too bad. And this, that man is a little gassy. He's going away. I'm just going to show off here. Takes a little longer. It's thinking because it's complicated as bubbles and manta, but did a pretty darn good job. Now, can I just say, how long do you really think it would have taken me to do that kind of cleanup? I mean, it's crazy. See a little line over here. You just can keep retouching with this this tool. But I'm holding down Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC, clicking on this eyeball to see the before and after. Wow. This is a game changer. BSXT is a game changer. I really hope you're going to love it as much as I do. I think you will. I know you will. And thank you so much for joining in on this journey with us. We are looking forward to seeing your nice, clean, sparkly images. And if you have any questions, go askerin.com. Thank you so much. Mwah.